Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are cutting through all the noise to bring you a story about just pure, stubborn perseverance. We're not talking about markets, not politics. We're doing a deep dive into the world of Japanese horse racing.
A really dramatic world.
Totally. And specifically, we're following the career of this one truly unique champion, Mejiro Bright.
That's right. And, when you think of champions, you usually picture something flashy, right? Overwhelming speed and instant knockout.
Yeah, exactly.
Mejiro Bright was, the exact opposite of that. He was the epitome of the long game. His whole story is this study in stamina, in effort, and how a horse who was just constantly finishing second.
The ultimate silver collector.
The ultimate silver collector, yes. How he finally delivered one perfect defining moment.
Okay, so let's unpack this for you. Our mission here is to really get the context of this horse's journey. Why was persistence his greatest weapon?
And what were the stakes? For the famous Mejiro stud, the farm that bred him, this was a huge deal.
Right. And how did a horse that was always getting beaten by superstars still manage to, etch himself into history?
Well, the foundation is really key here. Mejiro Bright was born in 1994, and his genetics, they just screamed endurance.
Oh, really?
Yeah. His sire was Mejiro Ryan. His dam sire was Merzensky. And that lineage tied him directly to this Mejiro stud tradition. They were kind of obsessed with producing stayers.
Stayers meaning horses built for distance.
Exactly. Not for quick bursts, but for distance. And that relentless grinding effort. For them, stamina was literally the family business.
So stamina may have been in his DNA, but that destiny was. It was absolutely not obvious when he started out.
Oh, not at all.
We have to talk about the beginning, because it was rough. This was not some shining debut that screamed future champion, not by a long shot.
It was famously awkward. His debut was at Hakata Racecourse, and it was a tiny 6-horse field. The betting market had zero faith.
He was the least favorite horse.
The 6th favorite.
Yeah.
The last favorite. He was sent off at these astonishing odds of 58.9 to 1.
Wow.
Yeah, imagine looking at a race and thinking there are 5 better options in a 6-horse field.
And yet, he won.
He won, came from dead last in the stretch and just passed all 5 of them.
That sounds like a miracle finish, but here's where the story gets a little funny. The time he ran was just awful.
It was notoriously, almost laughably slow. He ran the 1,800 meters on firm turf in just over 2 minutes, which is, way slower than a lot of standard 2,000-meter races.
So the reaction wasn't excitement.
No, it was just disbelief at the pace. It became known forever as his legendary bad maiden. Seriously, no one watching that slow, awkward win saw a future Group 1 champion.
But even with that bad time, something started to click, didn't it?
It did, almost immediately. He showed steady improvement. He took second in the Suzerain show and the daily high-knees high stakes.
So this awkward long shot is suddenly finding his rhythm.
Exactly. He wins the Radio Tampa high-knees high stakes and then the Kyoto News Service high back-to-back. And just like that, within a few months, he goes from being a joke to an undeniable top contender for the classic races.
Which brings us to 1997. The year of the classics, the big 3 races for 3-year-olds.
And this is where his true nature and the defining flaw that would just haunt him, it all became painfully apparent.
And that frustration was immediate. He was always in the fight, but never the winner. He was 4th in the Satsuki show, 3rd in the Japanese Derby.
And 3rd again in the Kikishift, which is the long-distance one. Always running on, always competitive, but just never first.
So what was the issue?
This is so crucial to understanding him. He wasn't untalented. He was structurally limited for those shorter tactical races.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the sources point to 3 specific things that made him a difficult horse. 1, he was always slow out of the gate.
Okay, that's a problem.
A big one. 2, he was dull to respond to the jockey. It took a lot of work to get him motivated into the race.
And 3, the ultimate killer for a horse with those kinds of classic ambitions.
No explosive acceleration. He didn't have that 6-second burst of speed, the kind that lets a rival just leave him standing in the final stretch.
So he only had one move.
One singular tactic. Drop to the very back, save all his energy, and then launch this long grinding run. He was like a freight train, slow to start, impossible to stop.
But he needed a really long runway to get up to speed.
He needed a runway the length of the country.
So it sounds like his engine was built for a marathon, but he kept getting forced into these tactical sprints. His talent was just on the wrong stage, right?
Absolutely. They had to rethink everything. His team knew he couldn't win these tactical battles against horses with a sharp turn of foot.
They had to shift the whole focus.
Completely.
Yeah.
From speed to just pure stamina.
Yeah.
They needed to find a race where endurance wasn't a bonus, it was the entire requirement.
And he found it. This is where the whole story pivots and where it gets really interesting. They pointed him toward the Stayers Stakes.
The ultimate test. It's run over 300 to 600 meters. This was his aha moment. He finally had a canvas big enough for his specific genius.
And what happened?
In that race, he unleashed this unreal stretch run that just left everyone in the dust.
Let's talk about that margin of victory. I mean, it wasn't a tight photo finish.
Not at all. He exploded past the field to win by an astonishing 12 lengths.
12 lengths?
I mean, that kind of crushing dominance in a graded stakes race is something you see maybe once in a generation. It wasn't just a win. It was this huge, emphatic declaration.
This is my domain.
Exactly. This proved it. It wasn't about tactics or acceleration anymore. It was proof of endless, limitless stamina. By the time he turned 4 in '98, he was fully mature.
And he confirmed it with another win, right?
Yeah, he won the AJCC, the American Jockey Club Cup. It was official. He was Japan's elite long-distance runner.
So, with that dominance established, they had one big target in mind. The Mejiro stud, his breeders, they had a really personal connection to one race above all others.
The Tenno-Shows?
The Tenno-Sho Spring. This 3,200-meter marathon was their crown jewel. It was the race that validated everything they worked for.
And they needed momentum going in. The Bright faced the reigning Grand Prix champion, a horse called Silk Justice, in the Hanshin Daishoten.
And how did that go?
It was an absolutely brutal duel. I mean, nose-to-nose down the stretch, a real fight that Bright won by the smallest possible margin, a nose.
Wow.
That win, his third straight, was the final piece of the puzzle. It built that critical momentum for the big one.
The stage was set. The Tenno share up. And this wasn't just a horse race. It was like the culmination of a family dream.
And Bright delivered. The sources all describe the victory as just magnificent.
Yeah.
He swung wide in the stretch, where he had room to launch that long, grinding engine.
And just powered past them.
Powered past them and surged clear for the win. The roar of the crowd, that sense of inevitability as his relentless stride carried him home. It confirmed it. He was the strongest stayer in Japan.
And then the historical significance here is huge, isn't it? We're not just talking about a single trophy.
No, not at all. This was the Mejiro stud's final Tenno-Sho Spring triumph, their very last one.
And their first, it's a real legend, right?
Yeah, their first, since the legendary Mejiro McQueen had done it years before. For that farm, which was built on ideals of toughness and dignity, their silver collector finally claimed the crown on their most cherished stage.
It was a perfect, beautiful culmination.
It really was. For just a brief moment, all those decades of specialized breeding and patience, it all paid off in one glorious peak. It fulfilled the Mejiro legacy completely.
Wait, so after delivering this intensely emotional historical victory, did they just retire him on the spot? Or did they throw him right back into the fire?
They threw him right back into the fire.
Of course they did.
And almost immediately, history repeated itself. Peaks are often fleeting, and Bright's short reign was met with immediate difficulty.
What happened next?
The very next start, the Takarazuka Kinnan, it was a disaster. He lost control of the gate, he reared up, was forced into an outside start. He was just defeated.
And later that year,
at the Tenno-Sho, autumn, he finished 5th, but he was suffering from some truly unlucky timing.
Unlucky timing? What do you mean?
Yeah, this race was marred by the infamous Silent Suzuka accident. Suzuka was one of the greatest horses of that era, and he broke down catastrophically on the track.
Oh.
The atmosphere just shifted instantly. From competitive excitement to shock and just deep tragedy, that accident overshadowed the whole day, and it really affected the other runners.
So in that environment, a 5th place finish is kind of understandable.
Very understandable. And if those two setbacks weren't enough, this was also when the next great wave of talent arrived.
The 1998 classic generation.
That's them. Horses like Saiyan Sky, the Mighty Grass Wonder, Special Week. He was now facing some of the fastest, sharpest middle-distance runners Japan had ever produced.
And against those explosive talents.
Mejiro Bright returned to his most familiar identity. The ultimate second-place finisher. He just couldn't outsprint them.
The numbers are pretty staggering.
They are. We looked at them. From late 1998 to late 1999, he ran 7 races and recorded 5 second-place finishes.
5 silvers and 7 starts. That one statistic just captures his entire career, doesn't it?
It really does. He was always there, guaranteeing a battle, but he was always beaten by a star with that extra burst of genius.
The perennial bridesmaid.
Exactly. He always got invited to the Super Bowl but had to watch someone else lift the trophy. That phase solidified his place in history, you know. He was the anchor, the yardstick of consistency.
If you beat Mejiro Bright, you knew you were elite.
Absolutely. But he could never quite shake the shadow of those faster, flashier rivals.
So let's talk about the end of his career and his final legacy. After a 5th-place finish in the '99 Arima Kinnon, he developed tendinitis,
Which is often a death sentence for a racehorse's career. He did try one comeback in October 2000 in the Kyoto Daishoten, but the spark just wasn't there.
He finished 8th.
He finished 8th, and the injury relapsed pretty quickly after, so he officially retired. 25 starts, 8 wins, and 8 seconds.
Think about that. Almost 65% of his starts were a top 2 finish.
It's an incredible testament to his effort and his honesty.
A tough, honest fighter. But sadly, his time was limited even after he left the track.
Yeah, that part of the story is really tragic. He became a stallion, but that career was cut very short. In 2004, he died suddenly of heart attack. He was only 10 years old.
And that really limited his impact as a sire.
Severely. With his passing, that historic domestic sire line from Amber Shaddai to Mejiro Ryan, it came to an end.
Did he leave any lasting impression in that brief time?
Just one notable stakes winner, a horse named Makihata Cyborg. And in this really beautiful tribute that just reinforces his father's genius, Makihata Cyborg famously went on to win the Stayers Stakes.
The very same race?
The very same race that defined Mejiro Bright's domain. That's the legacy, right? Specialization over flash.
So what does this all mean for us? We looked at a horse who was awkward, difficult, and, lacked the speed to be perfect. But he was fearless in battle, honest, and built for a distance that very few horses could even manage.
He really embodied the Mejiro Farm's core values: stamina, toughness, and dignity. He was a horse who just kept coming, despite all the limitations, despite the repeated failure.
He teaches us something.
He does. That while flash and explosive talent might grab the headlines and most of the wins, that relentless, grinding endurance will find its stage. And it will deliver the ultimate fulfillment, even if it only happens on one perfect spring day.
Mejiro Bright, the horse who was defined by 2nd place, yet still kept running, and delivered that one perfect historical moment when his specific talent was finally recognized. The silver collector, who for one season was the undeniable king of the stairs.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more.